That day wasn't so bad. It was fair day. Yeah, fair parade day. Not bad at all. I mean, unless you're Christian, sitting there with like judging, without the shade.
Oh, you just kind of start all over again. Yeah, they still had an athlete. See how it is, he doesn't want to be captain. Really? It looks young, like the handwriting looks, does that make sense, right? You know,
He has. I thought he looked up there.
I was gonna sit over there, but I realized the whole purpose was to be helping him. I thought, oh, I'll just sit with I figured I'd see what it was.
Well, it's over, they get to sell it, line up, I think, tomorrow. And, so we asked one of the guys, is it week actually coming? Maybe just for the council, maybe have a work session. I would. How are you? Hey, Jerry. Good evening. Hello. All right, so just after 6, so we will start with our city council work session. Work session item number 1, oil and gas wells. Mike Hall, good evening to you.
Good evening.
recognizing that we have a half an hour to cover this item, which could get complicated if need be, I'm going to go through these slides fairly quickly. I want to recognize we have with us tonight Tim McKee, who is with a law firm in Wichita that it's Triplett Garrison. There we go. Been working with them for about a month now. They have advised us on our review of oil well applications, and actually they looked over these slides to make sure that we were telling the story the way it really is.
Well, thank you to Mr. McKee and welcome.
Thank you.
Mr. McKee has a lot of experience in this field, and if there are specific technical questions, I'll probably just have him answer those. So why is this a topic for discussion tonight? There's a lot of development of oil wells on the periphery of Gardner. It's, as you see in the maps in the next few slides, it's really grown a lot in the last couple decades, especially the last decade. Request for oil wells, it says potential request, but there's an actual request for oil wells within city limits that we're processing, and there are existing abandoned wells within city limits. There are active wells within city limits, such as wells on the golf course. There's certainly a potential for a lot of impact to future growth and development, and citizens have concerns about wells. These four maps show you how wells have proliferated in the past few decades, and what's really noticeable here is the map of wells in 2003 and then the map of wells in 2013. And you can see they've really sprung up a lot right in the path of Gardner's growth, planned growth, I should say. This is a map that shows active and plugged wells as of June 2013, and consider that everything that's in kind of that pinkish, brownish, tan color is within the city limits, and all of the red circles, red dots, are producing, active wells. Sometimes wells don't actually produce. They can drill a well and it's not productive, but these are active wells. There are different shades in this map, but just to simplify, the ones in red are the ones you really need to think about, and the ones where you see a green dot with a cross through them, those are actually plugged wells. Those are wells that are no longer in production, and as you can see, they're in areas that have been developed in Gardner. This is a close-up version of this map. If you can kind of orient yourself, the lake, Gardner Lake, is up on the upper right-hand corner, and at the upper left-hand corner, northwest corner, the main intersection there is Four Corners and 151st Street. The far northwest corner of Gardner city limits is at 151st and Four Corners Road. So you can see how the wells are surrounding Gardner in this location. You can also get a better picture of all of the abandoned wells, plugged wells. When I say abandoned, they have been plugged. There's a potential for wells to be abandoned and not properly plugged, but these are plugged wells, and the concentration of them at the bottom is really just north of the airport, the municipal airport. Drilling the well, at the stage of where the well is actually being drilled, there's a derrick that's installed, and in a typical drilling rig, the operator will use a drill mud mixed with water in a compound, and that's injected into the bore, and at the end of the bore you can see the bit, and that mud goes through that bit and helps to bore the hole. The bit grinds away at the rock and the other material. As the hole is drilled, the metal pipe will be put into the hole to form the casing around the bore. And there's cement that's pumped in around the steel pipe for the well casing to hold the pipe in place. The used drill mud is actually pumped out of the well and deposited in a trench or a tank by the rig. You can kind of see it in that drawing there. And sometimes this material can leave residue that could potentially harm the soil in the future. In some cases, the owner or the operator will require that the trench be lined or that it be put into a tank so it doesn't damage the soil in the long term. So in this diagram, this is a production well. This is what a production well looks like. Above ground at the top of the well, you can see the pump jack. Generally speaking, the deeper the well, the larger the pump jack. The wells in Gardner the wells in the Gardner area tend to be shallow at around 1,000 feet or so, or even less than 1,000 feet. This diagram also shows the casing around the well and the pump. And at the bottom of the well, you can see how the casing is perforated, where you see that where it says oil sand. At that part of the well is perforated to allow the well from the formation to be pumped, or excuse me, the oil from the formation to be pumped into the well. You'll see in the next diagram that process. So you've heard the term fracking. A lot of people have heard that term. That's just short for hydraulic fracturing. In the upper left-hand corner, this shows a cross-section of what that looks like. There are two different types of fracking shown in this diagram. There's vertical fracking and horizontal fracking. In Gardner, the fracking tends to be vertical. I don't think there's any horizontal fracking in the Gardner area. Essentially what is done is there is a mix of fracking liquid. It's called fracking liquid, and it's made up of water, chemicals, and sand. The fracking fluid is pumped into the well and at great pressure, and that's used to open up the formation so oil can be pushed back into the producing well. The fracking fluid, as it's done, it does that. It increases the porosity of the formation. So, if you look at that other diagram on there, bottom of the slide, water flooding. When there's an oil well operation in this area, there will be production wells and injection wells. And as you can see, the production well that has the pump jack on it. You can see the oil coming up the well shaft. The way that works is large volumes of water are pumped into these injection wells, and that pushes the oil into the production well. So in the diagram where you see the green, that's the water, and the black is the oil. One of the concerns might be that there's a lot of water being used for this, and that could certainly affect the supply of water and could affect if there's a lot of demand on the supply of water, it could affect the cost of water. So the third step in the process is after the well has been mined for years, the economic life of the well is pretty much ended, then the well is abandoned, plugged. And typically how this works is the operator will contact the KCC, the Kansas Corporation Commission, which is the state organization that governs oil wells, and they will identify how deep that plug has to be based on the geology of the well. And there are a series of plugs put in, and at the top of the plug, as I understand, the top, say, 6 feet of the well bore is cut off. It's cut off, and then the plug is placed at the top of the well at that point. So it's not necessarily at ground level. It's 6 feet below